Hello, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you just walked in, you can get a headset if you want to hear this live in Chinese. 有耳机在后面. Okay. My name is Shuli Delafonte Lam, Language Acquisition Coordinator. I support the EAL program. We'll start with our community norms. We are a community together, and here is some of our norms that we want to make sure that we keep as whenever we gather together. Take a second to read this. Thank you so much for coming to this coffee, for coming to the source to learn more about the program. Something I want to note, we are going to center the student experience as we talk about how students are served in the EAL program. Thank you for your patience. I won't get to the bulk of the program yet, but I'll go on to the next few slides. Again, we keep students at the center of what we do. So one thing we want to make sure we emphasize is that learning a language takes a while, right? Some of you know many languages and you're still learning it. And so when we think about our students, how do we honor the growth process? Okay, as we think about them learning English at the school and how are they supported. Here's our time together. I'll go over what the program is, and I'll talk about a few ways to support your child at home. Again, this is me. I also work with Jen Foss, who's Director of Support Services. This is our team, EAL teachers. For some grade levels, we have 2 teachers. Some grade levels, we have 3. So, for example, Miss O'Day supports 4 classes. Miss Olivia supports 4 classes. So your child won't see both teachers, they'll just see one teacher. If you haven't heard from your child yet, if your child is an EAL foundational support, you have a chance to meet them at parent-teacher conferences. And we also have instructional assistants who work in the EAL program. And a lot of the program is support in the classroom. And so there will be times that the teacher is supporting in the classrooms. There will be times where the instructional assistant is supporting in the classroom. Our program is committed to fostering effective communication across multiple languages. And so our goal is to help support your children in developing English language skills. Already your children are coming in already knowing another language, which is a great asset. And our goal is to bridge the home language they know with English language skills. We have 3 levels of EAL support. For most of you who are here, your child is probably new to the EAL program. We have foundational support, which is for students who are beginning to learn English. With intermediate support, these are students who probably are speaking English on the yard, right? But they're really growing in their understanding of academic English. And then we have transitioning support. And our transitioning support is for students who we're just wanting to make sure we monitor, to make sure we support as they need. But students who are in transitioning support are integrated in the homeroom. They are able to access the curriculum, right? And so this support is just mainly, we just want to make sure for the next year or so that they are progressing well and that they are able to be really successful in with the curriculum. And in each of the 3 levels of support, I'll explain what this looks like in regards to world language class. For students who are foundational support, they will attend an English world language class during that world language block. They will get support from the EAL teacher and IA during class. So this means the teacher or IA comes in, they work with the student. If the student is working on writing and your student needs help on writing skills, they might be helping your student or reading skills, depending on what your child needs. And then they will also be working in very close collaboration with the homeroom teacher to make sure there are supports in the homeroom teacher's instruction to support your child. Intermediate support looks similar, except they are not attending an English world language class. Their support is mainly in the classroom. Okay? And they're able, and students in intermediate support attend Chinese or world language. Oftentimes, if your home language is Chinese, they will be attending what we call the Chinese Near Native or Chinese Language Arts course, and that helps develop their Chinese literacy skills. And research shows that the stronger that your child is in their home language skills, they will be able to bridge that to learn a new language. And transitioning support students are mainly just getting support as needed. They are not going to be seeing the EAL teacher, but the EAL teacher supports with any curriculum planning that they do as a grade level team. This is how it breaks down across the years. At this time, students who will get EAL support in grades 4 and 5 are students who have been in the program in the previous years. So what does a world language English class look like? These are for students who are receiving foundational support. So during the world language time, there is a small class, and they focus on foundational English skills. This depends on what your child needs. If it's oral language skills, there's going to be a lot of oral language skills. If it's phonics, if it's vocabulary building, right? So the teacher will be able to determine, hey, who are the students in my class and what English skills are most important to build during this time? And so support in the homeroom class, we want to make sure there's support in multiple areas. We want to grow students' listening skills, speaking skills, reading and writing skills. Viewing skills is, do they understand what's happening, and representing, can they represent it in their work? So some of you, as you know, language learning is very dynamic. So some of your children may be very verbal. They can have a really strong conversation in English, but they're still working on maybe their writing skills. Or there might be some of your children who may be really great readers, but they don't have as much confidence speaking, right? Or might be struggling to find the academic word or the precise language. So language learning is very dynamic, and it is very normal for your child to maybe be stronger in one of these domains. So support in the classroom for foundational and intermediate support students looks like co-planning and co-teaching. So for those of you who are educators, co-planning essentially means, let's say I'm doing a math unit and I'm about to teach math. Oh, but there are some emerging bilinguals in my class. So I want to make sure that these students, when I'm teaching my math lesson, understand. So the EAL teacher would say, hey, make sure you add a visual here. Or make sure you teach this vocab before the math lesson. And they help the homeroom teacher think about ways to make learning more accessible when they're teaching in the homeroom. The main focus is building academic English skills. And what I mean by that is students who have social language on the playground, they can talk about how fast they run or their favorite Pokemon, right? But academic English skills are things like, do they know the precise vocabulary? Let's say they're doing a science unit. Do they know the word for photosynthesis? Do they know the word for stem or leaf, right? In a kindergarten class. Do they have the academic language? And we stay database, so it might look like, if your student needs it, a small group or individual support. Depending on the content area, depending on your student's strengths and areas of growth, the teachers will be making sure that any support happens feels integrated in the class. Okay, they're not automatically put in small groups. It's really based on how your student is doing in that content area. So planning, I talked a little bit about planning. So all students in the EAL program will benefit from co-planning with the EAL teacher and the homeroom teacher. And the main focus is to make sure that all curriculum units have English language acquisition supports. We talked about vocabulary, sentence support, visuals, oral language support. So for example, this is an example of a second grade science unit that the team was planning for. It was talking about classifying, right? And we talked about how there may be supports needed for students who don't know the English word classify. So we added a picture. We added 2 pictures. We added a short definition. Classify means to sort into groups. And then for students who know this word or phrase in Chinese or Korean, which are our 2 most common home languages for EAL students, we put it the English and, the Chinese and the Korean word. All right, there is a fee for foundational support, and we did make sure in August that students were accurately placed. It is a one-time fee that was charged in September, and the fee allows us to have adequate staffing for the whole year. Okay, there may be times your student, it is typical they will be in foundational support the whole year, but there may be times they're progressing really quickly, they may exit, but that fee will be non-refundable. It is heavily subsidized by the school, and it is a common practice across Singapore international schools. All right, so a question that's sometimes asked, how long is my child going to be in the EAL program? I wanted to ground in a little bit of research. Research shows that it is typical for a multilingual student to take 5 to 7 years, okay, to master what we call CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. So that is academic language for them to engage in schoolwork. While it may take a shorter amount of time, sometimes 6 months to 2 years to master social language, it takes longer to master academic language. And our goal at SAS is to make sure that your students feel confident, equipped, and can access the curriculum. And so we oftentimes say it is typical for students to be at the same level of support for 1 to 2 years. Of course, each student's learning journey is varied and different. Okay, so even sometimes I have parents of twins wondering why their children are progressing at different rates. Each child is different. All right, let me talk a little bit about program placement. So whenever we place students at levels of support, we don't just use one piece of data. We use multiple pieces of data to make sure that placement is accurate. And then we also have checks at the end of each quarter to just make sure that placement is accurate. So when they came in, they took a WIDA screener. WIDA is the name of a English language proficiency assessment. We looked at language background. And in February, in the spring, every student in the EAL program will be taking the WIDA as well. And it will help us indicate placement for the next school year or exit for the next school year. And that will include EAL and homeroom teachers' inputs and observations. So most students will stay the same level all year, but we do make sure that we do have checks throughout the year. Some students grow really quickly. Some students really show that they are ready for the next level. And so we do have checks at the end of each quarter. And if that happens, we may take the WIDA test just to determine placement. And this is usually indicated by recommendations, first by recommendations from the EAL and the homeroom teacher. A tiny bit about the WIDA. There are 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And this is just a snapshot of a kindergarten. And this is very rough because it's not just the WIDA test. We do take a look at other data. But generally, foundational support is levels 1 and 2. Intermediate supports levels 3, 4.5, around there. Sometimes transitioning support students are around the 4 level, 5. And then when students are level 5 and exit across all domains, they're usually recommended to exit. Sometimes you might notice that a student's score may differ. So let me go back for a sec. So sometimes it may be typical, as you see this student, they're stronger in listening and reading. Their scores are 5, above a 5. But you can see that they are still working on writing. So our goal as a school is to make sure that they feel pretty confident and they've grown in every single skill. Okay, we want to make sure then they go off that their writing skills are strong. They have the grammar structures to be able to have a well-written writing before they move on. So when you look at that reader scores, just remember you're looking at every single domain. All right. So in this spring, after their reader tests, your scores will be sent back before the end of the school year, and we will communicate placement for the next school year. And for students in foundational support, you have a chance to meet your EAL teacher to learn more about how to support your child. We just really want to make sure that your students feel equipped and ready. And as I mentioned in the beginning, every one of your children are coming in already with a huge asset. They already know another language, and our job is to just have them build the second or third language that they're learning. All right, ways to support at home. So I wanted to go back to this research that I did say learning a new language takes 5 to 7 years. But if your child doesn't have a strong home language, they don't have strong literacy skills, it actually takes longer. It could take up to 10 years. So whatever language you speak at home, keep developing that for your child. Teach them how to read and write in your home language, because those skills will help develop the English skills. And sometimes I grew up in a time where I heard, oh, only speak English and then you learn. And we don't want our kids to come into SAS bilingual and leave monolingual. So keep developing those home language skills. So use it at home, okay? There is no research that says that children cannot learn multiple languages at once. They actually have an easier time learning a new language when they have those literacy skills in their home language. So however that looks for you, right? Songs, stories, reading books in your home language. For those of you who have Chinese as a home language, we have lots of Chinese books in our SAS library. They also have many Chinese books and other language books in our public libraries in Singapore. But more than reading it, have your child tell you, do they understand what the story is? Do they understand the problem, how the character is developing, how the problem is solved? Because they will be practicing these skills in English when they are here. So having them feel confident in doing it their home language at home with you will help lend those skills. Help your child understand how the functions of your language, the language structures, whether that's radicals, right? Or different parts of a language. Because when they understand how the grammar works in your home language, they'll be able to understand how that looks like maybe in English, right? For example, in Chinese, when you're talking about comparing, right? Apples are more than bananas. You say apples are more than bananas, right? In Chinese, right? 苹果比香蕉多, right? The grammar structure is a little different. Apples compare bananas more. But in English, it's apples are more than bananas. And so there's different words that students will need to learn. But if they understand what that means in their home language, it'll be easier. And then if you do know English, if you do speak some English, right? Help them make connections with the new words that they're learning in English. Oh, you just learned this in science? Let me tell you, in Korean, this is how you say photosynthesis, right? Or this is how you say migration, so that they're bridging their language. Your child could also read a book in English and have them retell it to you in your home language, vice versa. Playing a game, alternate between speaking both languages. In the car or bus, looking around, hey, let's try to say this word in both languages that you know, right? We want to make sure we're bridging language. And then set aside a quiet time to read. For those students who are in kindergarten, first grade, even second grade, we do have Epic or RazKids app, and you can listen to the books in English. Sometimes students may feel a little bit overwhelming to have to sound out every word at first, but listening to it still builds that literacy in English. So if you are not reading with them in English, it's okay. We do have resources to help them do that. That's basically what Epic it looks like. Also, if they have they watch TV, if they can read, I would say maybe second grade and up, put the closed captioning so they can connect what they're hearing with what they see. If you have they have a favorite TV show that they watch in your home language, sometimes you can dub it with English. I know my own kid, she's learning Chinese. Sometimes I make her watch her favorite show in Chinese so that she's building her Chinese skills. And yeah, just this is just more about building your home language at home. So that was a little bit about the EAL program, as well as some tips as to what you can do at home. For those of you who have been in the EAL program, you are familiar with these slides, but for those of you who are new or anyone else, do you have any questions that I can help answer? And you can ask in Chinese.
Hi. I saw when you were putting up the teachers' names, there was a acronym PLC. What does PLC stand for?
That's a great question. PLC means Professional Learning Community. And so at our school, we have like a third grade PLC leader who leads the third grade teachers. For the PLC leaders, we have Miss Dinan and Miss Riza, and they lead the EAL PLC, so all the EAL teachers. They're kind of like team leads. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
当时选择那个世界语就是add language 的时候，然后我们选择了 Spanish，然后我想问一下，就是是不是应该选择中文更好一点？因为我们在家其实说中文多一些，然后但是我选择了 Spanish， 我是在想，就是它可以再额外加一个语言，但我现在看了这个，我就心里就有点，就是有在想，我是不是做的是对的还是错的
？So her question is whether she should sign her child up for Spanish or Chinese. This is a great question. It depends on your family's language goals. So that is something that you decide as a family. But what I would suggest for students who are still developing English skills, I think, and if your home language is Chinese, I would suggest that your child continue in Chinese near native class to build those reading and writing skills. Of course, if your family's goal is that you really want your child to learn Spanish, that is up to you, right? But you can always change world languages once a year. And so what you could do is if they exit from the program, or they can attend world language, to sign them up for Chinese language arts or Chinese near-native class. And then in a few years, if you still want them to learn Spanish, you can always switch and they can start learning Spanish. But I would suggest having them be strong in English and Chinese first, but it really depends on your family's language goals.
好，我想确认一下，刚刚说到一个中级支持和一个过渡支持的 EL 的上课方式。我的理解是，中级支持会有专门的老师和那个同学们在一个另外的时间单独上课，而过渡支持呢，会有一个 EL 的助教，和班主任一起在课堂上去做这个 EL 的补充，是这样吗？
simultaneously. So I would like to know further the differences between intermediate and transitional support. So based on what you've shared, could you elaborate a little bit more the differences between these two?
Yes, no problem. So intermediate support, you're getting support in the classroom from the EAL teacher through co-teaching, but depending on what your child's academic needs are. Let me just go back to this. And transitioning support is really a monitor level, meaning that the EAL teacher is not so much giving support to your child, but they're supporting the homeroom teacher to provide any support that your child may need. So it is similar. And of course, if your child is in transitioning support and there's an EAL teacher there and they need it, right? They might help. But really, students in transitioning support are really pretty independent. They don't need much additional support. It's just a level the way we're monitoring that, hey, they've grown so much or they're already there. We want to make sure that they will continue learning English in a manner that helps them be successful. Okay, so the transitioning support is really mostly planning support with the teacher if needed. And EAL teachers generally are already supporting all the homeroom teachers to make sure there's language supports in the class. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. 是这样的，我们家2个小孩，一个
We
是
have
在
two kids.
kindergarten，
One
还有
is
一
in
个是在
kinder
G1
and。the other
然后我
one
都有
is
收到老师发给我的
and
一
I
个关于
received
EPIC 是这么读的吧
Epic
？EPIC 那个系统
To
里
use
边的
Epic
一些资料。然后我看到有专门说针对于我2个孩子的阅读书籍的推荐，
and I've
但
seen
是我
some
发现那个书
recommendations
好
to
难
my
啊，
children.
就是对于他们2个来讲的话，都非常难。那我女儿的 MAP 成绩其实还可以
Very
，99分
challenging.
位，但是她读
My
给她
kids
推荐那
scored
个英
well
文
in
书的
math,
时候就
but
已
I
经
think the
她听不
books
懂。
recommended through
所以
Epic
我在
by
想，
their
就是我
homeroom
不太
teacher
理
is
解，
quite
就是
challenging.
这么难的这个阅
So
读的
my
这个
question
推荐的
is,
书籍，
since the recommended
孩子
books
是
are
不是
so
继续读？因为
challenging
他其实很
for
感
my
兴趣，因为
kids,
上面有那个图片嘛，有那个绘图
kids，are
但是他要
interested
花
in
大
the
量的
books,
时间
but
去盯那个 iPad
kids
去
needs
看
to
这个书
spend
籍，
a
所
lot
以我
of
每次
time
其实
on
都
the
是在
screen, so
强制
I'm
他到
quite
时间要
concerned
停
about
止，所以
spending
我不
so
太
much
理解，
time
就
on the
是
screen. So
学校给安排的那个
having a
iPad 为什么
problem
就是那么难
understanding,？
如果那看那个英文的
why
话，其实
do
是
they
看不
assign
懂。
such a challenging text to my
So the kindergarten and second grade and wondering about the assignments on EPIC.
So they think that they feel the assigned books are way too challenging for both the kids. So but they are very interested in it. So they ended up spending way too much time on the screen. So I had to remind them, hey, you have been spending too much time on it. So we were wondering, assigning these text levels that aren't very suitable. What's the rationale behind this?
So this is good feedback for the teacher.
您可能需要跟您孩子的
I would email both of your teachers and just say, hey, the texts that are assigned are too hard, and ask the teachers what their rationale might be. Not knowing what the books are, who your child is, or what the teachers, it's hard for me to give an answer about that. And then you could also ask the teacher, is the goal for your child to just listen to the story or to read it? Right? If it's just listening, that might be a different goal from having to sound everything out. But one thing as a parent that I feel like you can also have the agency to be able to do is limit the time. Let's say you want 20 minutes, set a timer. They do what they can in 20 minutes, right? If you want to limit the iPad usage. So whatever practice they can get, say in 20 minutes, if that's what you've determined, that's what they get. But yeah, we don't want students to be struggling, right? And so I would also look at the iPad. So my understanding is that students can choose different books, maybe have them choose something easier if possible. If not, email the teacher and ask. Any other questions? Yes.
就是我想问一下，就是当你们在做这个support 的时候，你们怎么去评估？除了 VIDA， 你们还有什么其他的评估方式去评估这个孩子需要什么级别的支持？包括多久做一次这样的评估？
Okay, we would like to know, how do you decide which level of support you provide to the students? Apart from WIDA, how do you assess them, and how often do you assess them to finally define and which level they should receive?
That's a great question. We do have WIDA as kind of our anchor for placement, but there are multiple assessments that your child has throughout the year. So if your child is in kindergarten and up to second grade, they take what we call a phonics assessment to see do they understand the different letters and the different sounds of the English language. There's also reading assessments that students take, and this is for every student, right? We also, of course, we look at math as well, but we also look at, we have standardized tests called Ames Web and MAP, and that helps assess all students on a standardized manner. And oftentimes we take a look at, what does the standardized test say? What does WIDA, MAP, Ames Web say? What does the classroom data say? What is happening in the classroom? Are they able to do their writing on their own, or do they need a lot of support? When it's partner talk, are they able to turn and talk to a partner, or do they not say anything, right? And we also have teacher recommendations. So we really look at multiple things: standardized tests, classroom performance, and teacher recommendations and observations. Any other questions? No other questions? Yes.
我的孩子是因为今年刚刚从中国转到这边来的，在国内他学的双语，但是我发现他的英语基础基本相当于这里的3年学习下来，基本相当于这里的零基础。那我想就是无论是从听力还是口语，他都很弱。我们报了这个基础知识，他可不可以就是现在在 KG 班，是否可以帮他安排一个1对1的这样的，或者是小班的一个？在世界语言的这个学习过程当中，是否可以单独给他安排一个这样的，让他快速提升一下这个英语的能力？
So I have my kid who just came from China and joined SAS this year. Although he's been attending like a bilingual school in China for the last 3 years, but when he actually landed in SAS, his listening and speaking is basically, very, very, very basic. So what he has received is the foundational support, but I was wondering whether he could receive, during World Language Time, he received one-to-one support or small group support.
Yes, during World Language, it is a very small group.
对
What grade is your son in?
几年级？
Oh, KG. Yes. So the actually during English World Language, the classes are quite small. They're not, so a typical class in the homeroom is 22 students. English World Language class for students receiving foundational support are much smaller. So maybe a little bit bigger than this, but depending on the grades, some grade levels, they're quite small. Some, they're definitely less than 12 students. But in KG, I think depending on the class, it's probably 8 to 10 this year. So and there is the teacher and the IA, so they're receiving lots of personal support. And part of as you guys know, as multilingual people, when we learn languages, right, sometimes it develops differently. So your child might be understanding, right, but just needs more confidence or practice speaking. So that sometimes that takes time, right? But do know that the English word language block is a small personalized class. Any other questions? Yes, I'll get to you.
Yeah, my daughter is currently in kindergarten and she's receiving intermediate level support. I'm just wondering, typically, how many years it's gonna take for her to move from intermediate to transitioning? Because it seems to me it might take 5 to 7 years because she's gonna really master the academic language proficiency. And another thing is, have there been any cases that the children move from intermediate back to foundational support? Thank you.
That's a great question. So I can say what is generally observed, usually 1 or 2 years at each level of support. But that said, each child learns differently. There might be children who are a little bit on the shy side and might take a little bit longer to feel confident in speaking English. And there are students who only need intermediate support and they exit the next year, right? And so every child is different. I would say knowing your child, it may be 1 or 2 years in intermediate. She may exit or go to transitioning depending on how much she needs to be monitored. In regards for students in intermediate moving down to foundational, that is extremely rare. But if data shows that, hey, they've made progress and then we're not seeing progress, and actually it would be supportive for them to have more support, that is something that we will have a conversation about, but it is not typical.
Is it possible for us to see the students' WIDA score so that we know where we should focus on?
She asked about the WIDA score. So every spring we will send the WIDA scores. If you do want to see it at admissions, that if you can email me, I can give you my card and I'm happy to share that with you. Yeah. Any other questions?
So the WIDA test is always assessed in February.
Yes, the WIDA, every student takes the WIDA in February. We will share what those scores were in placement for next year before the end of the school year. All right, if you have any other further questions, I will be here for a bit. But please, thank you so much for being here. And just know that your children are amazing, and they're hard workers and strong and smart, and we're so glad they're part of SAS. Please take some food on the way out. Thank you so much.